Expectations and how they obstruct a reality-based, neutral tackling of life.
In his book, Gesetze und Gebote, Verhaltes, the laws and recommendations of behavior, Billy writes that we should avoid having expectations about things. While reading this section, I keep thinking about the advice in might of the thoughts about constructing wish dreams that are intended to become real and how we should maintain them as seal one in the it is so form. So, how is that different from an expectation? If you trust that method and have seen it work for yourself, don't you expect the dream to become real? Judging from the broader explanation about expectations in Billy's article, it seems to me that Billy is referring to a rigid construct that obstructs progress because of its very rigidity. Billy's article explains that by holding on to expectations you make demands, on one hand, and on the other hand you impose limits on yourself that prevent you from bringing yourself to fruition selbstverwirklichen.
It is also the case that you consciously claim something as soon as you assume that you have a right to what you demand and expect. This, however, leads to the fact that everything else that comes your way seems meaningless to you. Consequently, you do not pay attention to it, or only halfway, and do not really perceive its value. If, however, you do not expose yourself to expectations, then everything that you receive without expectation becomes a good gift for you, and it is also able to put you in joy and wonder and give you new thoughts and feelings again and again. Otherwise, however, you fall into joylessness, disappointment, and frustration when you create expectations with ideas because they are not fulfilled. In addition, uncontrollable anger arises when something does not turn out as you expect and as it should be according to your expectant imagination.
This book of Billy's is very much about relationships, and so, for examples of our expectations, we can surely look at not only the expectations we have of ourselves and the expectations others have of us, but also what we expect of others. We might consider, for instance, whether it is right to expect a partner to adopt the behaviors we think we ourselves adhere to. In fact, these are perhaps behaviors we expect of ourselves. Shouldn't we ourselves and our partner behave in a certain way? If not an expectation, then what should it be? Well, we can recognize that such behaviors are desirable, beneficial and conducive to a harmonious cohabitation, and they should be adhered to if those things are to be achieved. We can express that to ourselves and the others. But it is not constructive to put the idea of these being fulfilled in concrete and demand them of ourselves and others. Demanding and expectations, these things that Billy describes here around the term Erwartungen, must surely be examples of a form of Gewalt, where one attempts to force an idea or desire into reality by holding firm to it. Gewalt too is not just physical and legal impositions of one's will on another, but includes persuasion, for instance. You can read more on this here at //Behaviour/coercion pressure.
The truth about expectations is that you get much less, nothing at all, or only wrong and opposite things in return for what you expect. Expectations can be compared to a time bomb that explodes at its appointed time and causes damage, disaster, and destruction. Expectations are just as wrong as the imaginations from which they result. Expectations and imaginations cannot buy you material things, love, happiness, peace, friendship, freedom, harmony, and good interpersonal or other relationships of any kind.
It seems that Billy is explaining that an expectation is like an illogical shortcut to success, because it contradicts the fact that all good things come from logical, gradual effort and working through the problems that prevent an outcome. Demands and expectations artificially impose something that does not correspond to reality.
All these high values cannot simply be demanded. Not by expectations, ideas, nor by Gewalt. Not even when a situation arises that seems favorable. In truth, you have to create everything from within yourself, from your inner being, which has to adjust itself to the actual truth, correctness, and reality, and leave aside what is expected and imagined.
At the end of page 79 it is explained that if you don't let the expectations and imaginations go, they prevent you from having the clear sight to recognize what your requirements are, and so you make out that the expectations and imaginations and inadequacies of thinking have nothing to do with yourself. Then you lie to yourself and the others, and this leads to auseinandersetzungen, which here means fights and might struggles. Then in conversation you have to talk about trivial things so that there is no question and answer to be confronted with. Joyful expectation, he explains, is also not good and inevitably ends in disaster. So when we tackle something, we need to do it neutrally and with equalization to avoid disaster.
Set yourself a seal which you want to achieve through your own efforts, without having any expectations or imaginations about that seal, but make it clear to yourself that you only want to achieve your seal and work towards it so that you know that you will also achieve it.
A further problem caused by expectations is that they cause stress and strain and pressure. The extent of our expectations is significant in the stress it causes, and often it is more than we can bear. The expectations come from inadequate thoughts. The thought of having to do this and that, based on the expectations, removes from us the ability to think freely, clearly and logically, and thus from the ability to succeed. The many expectations lead us to work in a stressed and difficult form and require great effort regarding interpersonal relationships, where you can gain nothing or very little for yourself because
you connect everything with expectations, which in the end are nothing but smoke and mirrors.
Interestingly, Billy explains, there is in fact more and more resistance which arises in us as it appears to us that we are getting closer and closer to our expectation. In contrast to that, as we approach its seal which is without expectations, then we connect with it more and more with our thoughts and feelings, because it is based on reality. If you have resistance against something material or another human being, it prevents you from beginning or tackling something. And this can lead back to an expectation. On page 83 Billy says, drop the expectations and set new but small zeal.
And when you get into a situation where everything seems to be formed largely according to your expectations that you make for yourself, then your needs are not fulfilled and they are still far from what you expect them to be. Your expectation and idea of how your experience and the experiencing of that should look like and be formed, you turn into a ritual whereby you kill the ability of your inspiration, in which you can experience and live new and valuable ideas. And because the whole thing is a natural law that expectations and ideas are not fulfilled but only set and reasonably and logically pursued zeal are fulfilled, it happens that you are hard on yourself and others and lose confidence in yourself as well as in other human beings, your partner, friend, acquaintance, or other fellow human beings. This, however, blocks you in your constant progress and breeds in you new, false expectations and ideas, which in turn never come true according to your wishes.
So, we are advised not to expect things of our partner or other one we are in a relationship with. We don't even completely know them. How could we when we do not even know ourselves and how we would react in different situations that often only arise many years down the track? We typically show our best sides when we enter a relationship and only the bad ones more when there is a disagreement. What qualities and possibilities another human being has are hidden and are usually less than we assume. So we should drop our expectations and imaginings and concentrate on the real truth of who they are. We can then form logical zeal relating to the relationship based on that.
And the more you consciously and understandingly, with intellect, deal with the real truth in relation to all things connected with it, the easier and more natural the whole thing becomes for you. And it is also a fact that in the end you no longer have to make any special effort because everything comes about as if by itself and brings you progress and success, so you can relax and enjoy what you are striving for and what leads you to the zeal.
There is a lot in this explanation that needs contemplating to come to understand it fully. But already I take away from it a few main points. Firstly, I am prompted by it to even notice some of my current expectations and realize what obstructions they are to my happy progress in life. Then I understand that I can joyously construct zeal to replace them and work to make sure that those zeal are based on my best possible perception of reality. Then I can pursue those zeal with the understanding that persistent, logical striving will produce the desired outcome in time. I am then free of the stress that accompanies expectations and am open to inspiration and intuition about all that I strive for. There is no English word that conveys the true meaning of the German word Gewalt. Gewalt is the brutal execution of elemental might and force, but it is far above all might and all force. Gewalt exists in different and relative forms, one example being a gewalttätige Gesinnung expression from the character, personality, thoughts, feelings and emotions that shows the inclination to act with Gewalt. When human beings possess or carry out acts of Gewalt and it is not based in logic, then this usually involves violence, brutality, degradation and is terribly destructive. Viven and leg.